Jeff, welcome to another episode of Clienting. How the heck are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. Still coming off the high of our lunch hour legal marketing conference, which was rousing success, in my opinion.
Yes, we got a lot of positive feedback. We're super grateful to everybody in the Lunch Hour Legal Marketing community who participated in the summit and looking forward to host the next one. And it makes me think clienting is local law firm conversations about marketing. I think the thing we've been talking about a lot is that there's just no substitute for in person, right? We do a
There's
lot
not.
via Zoom. You can do a lot via digital. You should use digital to support your in person events, but there is just something about being in person with people that are, whether they share an affinity like people do at Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, or people in your local community that want to get out for a cause or a charity or whatever it is that you're doing in your local community. No substitute for that. We'd encourage law firms to double down on that activity in the age of AI.
Completely agree. Come on, it's built into our biology over so many years. That's not just going to flip with Zoom. You're right. There's nothing similar to that kind of connection that you can make by actually sitting down and sharing a meal and a conversation with someone. It's a completely different kind of feel.
100%. And I also a housekeeping announcement here. The Clienting podcast, we originally launched it, I think it was like 2018. I have to go back and double check to see. But it kind of lay dormant. Kelly Street was really the leader of publishing clienting, and we're super grateful for all the work that she put in with getting guests, but bringing clienting back in guest show format.
Bring
And
it back.
so for bringing it back, folks that are listening to this and want to contribute to the conversation on how law firms are getting clients in today's age, we would love to hear from you. Law firm owners, CMOs, in-house legal marketers, marketing directors. If you touch marketing law firms, excuse me, we want to hear from you. And even if you're not in a law firm, maybe you're a consultant, maybe you're a fractional, maybe you're a technology person. Certainly, if you're a friend of AttorneySync, hit us up. We'd love to amplify your message.
Yes, we want to be able to get so many different people's experiences and what they're doing, what's working, what's not working, share away in the community.
Yes, sir.
Guy, anything in the legal marketing sphere or even adjacent that you've come across that has piqued your interest or curiosity? Before we dive into some questions, I'd love to hear if there's anything on your mind.
Yeah, we're coming off of Lunch Hour Legal Marketing Summit, and one of the themes there that we've been talking about this a lot. We've been talking about it. Conrad and I have been talking about it on Lunch Hour Legal Marketing a lot. Look, we've got all of these macro factors that are pushing down on law firms. So we've got consolidation, we've got national players with a lot of big budgets, we've got private equity coming into plaintiffs, and I think other practice areas down the stretch as well. And so it's competitive. You couple that with AI, technology, automation, and you start thinking to yourself, what do I do to stand out and compete? And I keep coming back to the same theme. And the other thing I sense from this, in the community, but also just more industry wide, there's kind of these two major paths. And of course, there's a lot of mess in the middle, but there's major routes that firms are taking. One is this idea of efficiency, automation, scale. And so how does that play out? They're trying to reduce human involvement in service delivery. They're using AI for intake, AI for practice management, yada, yada, yada. And again, I'm not casting aspersions, looking down my nose at it. We use AI as well, but it's like the how, and it's like is automation and efficiency and scale your driving theme? And then the other branch is we're going to do the opposite. We're going to double down on client experience. We're going to double down on relationships. We're going to double down on local community. And I think that there is an open question of how this plays out in the legal services consumer landscape. I am very much in the second route. And again, that don't use technology, not to say don't use advertising, but it's remembering at the core of this, at least for now, there's a human being on the other side who's arguably dealing with one of the most difficult situations of their lives, making a hiring decision. And I think the research or partnership with Near Media supports this, but the firms that are likely to capture market share moving forward are those that are investing in those client experiences and investing in those relationships. And that really, to me, that's the only way you push back against mass ad budgets, because those firms that are spending, they're banking on mere exposure effect. They're banking on just more impressions means more trust. And you have to ask yourself, like, how do you break into that consumer's mindset? And it's things like, I saw you at my local community event. I saw you speak at our high school. I got your care package, or whatever it is that you're doing to invest in those relationships. So, anyway, that's what I'm seeing out there right now. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I agree. I think we've talked about this before, but having it be there's no moat in just the technology, right? And legal is it's a service-based business to begin with. So I think that we've talked about this a ton, but I agree that it's really got to be down to the client experience. What does that look like from the first time that they reach the firm? And are they talking to an AI? Are they fooled by that? Or do they know that they're talking with someone that's being empathic towards the situation all the way through in the communications, et cetera? And yeah, so I think that I agree. It's about doubling down on the service aspect. I do not think you're just going to be able to repeat whatever AI is doing for everybody else and have it actually be something that differentiate your firm. I agree. What
Great.
else, Ski? What else?
That's it.
That's it. Okay. Okay. I've had some questions from a few different sales calls, people that we're talking to. Let me bust in on the first one here. We talk a lot about data, garbage in, garbage out with data. What are the most common ways firms are feeding their dashboards bad data and not knowing it?
They just don't know. I don't know how to say it beyond that. They're not, there's no, you set up an integration between two data sources and there's no data integrity. There's no processes run to make sure that the data is actually purporting. It can be human behavior, it can be naming conventions, it can be account structures, it can be URL conventions. That I was just looking at today is that we've talked about this before, but ChatGPT, even today, as of, we'll timestamp this because people are forecasting that's going to change to Yelp, but Tuesday, August 18th at 1:11 p.m., I just did a search or a prompt on ChatGPT, and it was a bottom of the funnel lawyer lookup type search, and it populated Google Business Profile results, and the ChatGPT is pulling Google Business Profile URLs into the website link. And so what that means is that if someone does a prompt on ChatGPT and your firm is populated there with your Google Business Profile and someone clicks on the website link or calls the tracking number, your data is going to say this is a Google Business Profile call or a Google Business Profile click, and it's not going to capture ChatGPT. Then I also noticed that ChatGPT even handles this differently. Sometimes ChatGPT will populate the URL tracking parameter, and sometimes ChatGPT will append a chatgpt.com referral source. And so if you think about this with this, and this is a very basic example, but if you're relying on that data to make decisions about where you're investing your local SEO strategy, you're flying blind, or at least you're flying with broken instrumentation because it's actually not doing what it says it's going to do. The other place that we see this all the time is the difference between quantitative and qualitative attribution data. Your URL click path shows one thing, and the client reports on their call with you that they were referred by a friend or a completely different source for attribution. And so these are common issues. They come up in pretty much every single data infrastructure that we look at. It's very rare that a firm's actually addressing this. And that's another thing that I talked about at Lunch Hour Legal Marketing Summit is that we've got to get out of this mindset of like sources and start thinking about consumer journeys and really trying to figure out like as much as we possibly can about the journey versus assigning different weights to any individual source or touch point throughout that journey. And so this is why a lot of CMOs get frustrated because they want to be working with agency partners and the agency partner wants to take credit for everything that they're doing. And all of the brand, the affinity, the community stuff that we encourage firms to do gets lost in that because the agency will say things like, the last click was Google Ads or the last click was Google Organic. And so is that broken? I don't know if it's broken, but it's certainly a very myopic view of the way people are finding and hiring your firm.
So if I'm agreeing in the sense of it's about the journey, not just the channel, but I'm tasked with making spending decisions, right? So I need to be able to allocate a budget towards these different channels. How do you think about the budgeting aspect overlaid on top of thinking of things in terms of journeys instead of channels?
Look, if you, the easiest thing is this: if your whatever you're spending time or money on isn't showing up as a touch point across any of your client journeys, it's not working, right? So that's a simple one. Now, does that mean put the pump the brakes on everything? Not necessarily, because different channels and different marketing investments are going to perform over different time horizons, right? So if you're doing, excuse me, non-brand direct response Google ads and local services ads, and you're not seeing qualified wanted leads, qualified consultations, open case files from those, something's wrong. Does that mean that you should stop spending money on it? No, but you need to identify what's broken there, know what's not working. And so I always think about it like this: when you're thinking about like anything else, you want to place a bunch of different bets across a portfolio of activities. So you're not just, it's not, we hear this all the time. Lawyers will say things like Google ads doesn't work. And it's, you have no idea what you're talking about. Is that because you opened an ads account up in like broad matched lawyer, you spent a bunch of money and you didn't generate any cases? Or is it because you've actually been doing sophisticated media management and for some reason the economics of that channel just don't work for your practice? Maybe the cost per case is too high because the cost per clicks in the click universe that you're bidding on is working, or you're not converting enough because you're very selective on cases. And in conferences and sound bites and podcasts and blog posts and social media clips, everybody wants to paint with these broad brushes about 3 things that do this thing and 3 things to avoid, or and it's like not as simple as that. It's much more nuanced. And so you've really got to dig into what's going on there. But at the end of the day, the issue is not like, to me, it's not about do we spend money or not spend money on this thing. It's like understanding that, is the money we're spending achieving the desired objective? Is it contributing to the growth goal? And the only way to really do that is to get as complete of a picture of the client journey as you possibly can, and then hope for reaching that objective. But they're different. If you're doing non-brand direct response in Google ads, you can't compare that to dollars spent on offline media brand building, certainly not over the same time horizon. And you're going to run into all sorts of data limitations and attribution issues that are going to cause you to ultimately conclude that, oh, brand isn't really driving anything, until you actually watch people do journeys and realize that, oh yeah, people are only, you're only part of the consideration set if they actually recognize you in the first place.
That makes a ton of sense. I think it's just, I sometimes struggle with understanding, like, agreeing that like the diversification of the bets matters a lot, right? You need to make sure that you're placing a lot of these bets, but it's like how to weight how much you're placing in terms of the bets themselves, which there's not a clean answer. It's going to be nuanced and different for each firm, but it's trickier to know, like, if I'm going heavy into this particular type of activity, be it with monetarily or with just like time resource, and I'm seeing it show up, but how much of an impact it's having, it's just trickier to know. Should my next dollars and additional ones go here, or am I pretty good in this particular channel? And I think that's especially true when you move away from just like a direct response type of thing into the more branding type of activities.
Yeah, but you know,
Answer.
there's all sorts of leading indicators to indicate that your investments in brand are paying off, right? So you can look at Google Search Console, branded impressions. That's the number of times someone's searching on your name or your firm name. You can look at, if you're buying branded keywords on Google Ads, you can look at your Google Ads data. We encourage people to do unaided and aided brand awareness surveys, so you can actually ask people in your community if they've ever heard of your firm or which firms they recognize. And so if that's growing, again, is it going to be like, it's not direct response, so it's not like you're not looking for, hey, I saw your billboard and to call you. It's not the, oh, I put a tracking phone number on this billboard and people are like driving by and trying to feverishly write that down. And that's the problem, is that and it's digital marketing people's fault, really. They've trained everybody that you can track everything, and you really can't track everything. Can you track a non-brand, linear, direct response Google Ads journey? Search, click, call, hire? Sure, and you should. And those types of wanted leads and clients, they should show up on your dashboard segmented out from brand. But the problem is that you see that and you get so focused on the tracking that you bail on everything else. And so I would encourage people to have additional gauges on their dashboard that show brand growth, or show a multi-touch client journey where it's, oh yeah, look, this is a segment. when you can say things like 20% of our clients follow a journey where they indicate that there was a referral source part of their journey, like that, now you're getting a different lens into your firm's data, and that will help you justify making investments. But at the end of the day, the issue is not becoming hyper focused on like how much to spend on certain thing. It's saying,
Mhm.
look, all in, here's where we're trying to go. Here's the budget that we have to support that. We're going to spread that budget across X, Y, and Z different efforts. And here's how we're going to measure the impact of those things, both from a whether it's direct response and more linear attribution, or it's leading indicators, or it's touch points. But it's really more about more informative data than it is this one dashboard metric KPI thing that tell you where to spend your money. Otherwise, you optimize yourself into a box. You're like, you end up being
Right.
like, we're only going to focus on the things that we can track. And if you focus only on the things that you can track, you're going to leave a lot on the table, because even of the things that you can track, you're not getting a complete picture of how people are actually finding and hiring and choosing you.
What are the ways that you would look at or measure brand growth?
The ones I said: Search Console, branded search and Search Console growth, Google Ads, brand
Mm.
query search on Google Ads. And then I would do aided and unaided brand awareness and affinity research to say, hey, look, do people actually in my community know our firm name? If you want to be more sophisticated, you can get into user behavior testing, so you can watch people actually go and do searches and see if you
Mhm.
are coming up as the recognized firm in the consideration set. But those are the big ones that are off the top of my head. And how did you hear about us, right? When people say
Right.
things, people get mad about this all the time because they're like, people don't know and they get it wrong and all this stuff. But it doesn't really matter. If someone says to you, oh, I've known about your firm for 25 years, that's brand, right? That's not
Yeah.
direct response. That's not whatever bucket you want to put it in. And that's enough. If I'm hearing that and I'm hearing more, I got a dashboard that's tracking people that are saying, I've known about your firm since I was a little kid. Those are in the brand bucket.
I want to talk a little bit about expansion. This came up a few different calls that I had where people were in certain areas looking to expand. So I wanted to touch on some of these different questions. There's a dominant firm in a mid-sized market wants to crack into a major metro where nobody's heard of them. What travels with them, and what do you think has to be rebuilt in the new area?
There's a lot of it depends in there, because do they have the first question that everybody always has to address, especially when you're thinking about physical location, is do you have a number of Google reviews that are coming with you? So are you moving your office from we'll just use just a quick example. So you're like, are you outside Chicago and you're moving into downtown Chicago? If you're doing
Mhm.
that and you've got thousands of positive reviews on Google Business Profile and you're just moving office locations, not an issue. But if you don't, then that's the first thing. Forget about Google. You're toast. There's no way you're going to compete. Even if you show up there, people aren't going to choose you because they've got 500 other law firms with thousands of more happy clients singing your praises. And so Google's out. I mean, I would be very much, you're in demand generation mode. Forget about demand capture. No one's going to pick. Why would people pick you? They have no reason. No one knows you there. You have no positive, you have no client reviews. You're just one of another thousand law firms. And so then what do you have to rebuild? You have to rebuild everything. Now, if you have reviews and you have a reputation and people already know you, or you're already getting referrals, people are already searching on your brand, then you're not rebuilding that. And so again, there's not a clean answer to that question. It like totally depends on how you're coming to the table in terms of your competitive nature. If you have brand awareness, is your brand awareness that you've built in the suburban community carry over geographically to downtown? Like those are all the things that you have to be asking. Odds are, like you're moving, you're starting over. Let's just face it.
Yeah. This was more of an expansion play where they were well known in a suburb area, but not in the main metro area, or certainly not comparably in the main metro area to they were in the suburb. And they were looking to crack in there and kind of thinking, hey, what actually travels well with me versus what I
Nothing.
should be
Nothing
thinking
travels
about.
well with you. You're toast. You're up. You're moving into Chicago. You're moving into one of the most competitive personal injury markets in the United States. You're competing with private equity. You're competing with national brand players. You have no chance. If anything, I'd move to another suburban county. Forget about trying to
Yeah.
crack into downtown, unless you sold your firm to an MSO and you've got unlimited budget, because you're starting over with brand. So I think that's a good point, though. If you're a law firm that's sitting here listening to this and you think that you have any brand equity moving from a suburban county into a downtown area, forget about it. I don't think there's and I would love to hear from you. If you think you have that, shoot me an email and I will show you how you are totally wrong.
That is actually where our conversation went because there was consideration of other suburb areas. And that was the same advice that I gave as well, is you're better off trying to crack into here than compete over there. I'm going to give you a complete softball, and at the risk of repeating yourself, because some of this was addressed on the forefront of the conversation, but this came up twice, so I want to get it out here. You can't outspend a Morgan & Morgan on branding. So what does competing with a mega advertiser look like for a mid-sized firm in the area?
Yeah, you've got to double down on an affinity audience that you can actually appeal to. So think about the things that you care about. Think about the things your local community cares about. Cycling always comes to mind. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like the cycling community is top of mind for me, but if you love to ride a bike and you go to cycling events and you're on the board of your cycling chapter, you're super into it. You need to be the lawyer that's in that community, that's investing in that community, that's showing up in the events, that's supporting all the activities that the cycling community does, taking a leadership role in terms of maybe you're talking about cycling safety tips, all the things that go into that community. That's the only way to break it through someone that's going to make a decision based on the mere exposure effect. And then a lot of lawyers will be like, I don't have any of those things. I'm passionate about being a lawyer. I'm not a cyclist. I'm a lawyer. That's what I do. I spend all my time practicing law and helping clients. Then I would say the next best alternative is to get involved in the things that your community cares about. And again, this is going to vary from community to community, but every community has restaurants and organizations. Maybe it's youth sports, maybe it's a school. You pick what's going on in your local community, that things that people care about, events that people care about, and you've got to be supportive of those things. Because again, you're someone that's in any community. They drive by, they see the billboards. They're getting inundated by advertisements on television. They're getting inundated by advertisements on social media and all the websites that these firms are buying mass display campaigns on. And so they're seeing the mere exposure effect. They're seeing these ad impressions over and over again. And we know that exposure breeds trust for those firms. That's the hurdle that you have to get over in order to win that person's attention. And you're not going to do it on exposure. So what do you do it on? You have to do it on some kind of affinity. There has to be something that they're going to be like, you know what? I know John Morgan. I know Top Dog. I know the other big billboard lawyers in my area, but I'm choosing so-and-so because so-and-so also is a cyclist, or so-and-so is doing backpack giveaways, or so-and-so is doing whatever thing that they identify with, and double down on those things and recognize that a big segment of the market that you're just not going to be able to compete on that because you can't compete on exposure. And so you have to think about the things that you can do that make you appealing. Because again, what do lawyers do? They go to most experienced, most aggressive, hardest fight, best law school, blah, 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 AI, whatever it is that they think is a competitive advantage.
Combined years of experience.
Yes, none of that's a competitive advantage. Everybody else is saying the same thing, and no one cares. Competence is table stakes. Everybody assumes that if you're out there practicing law, you're good at what you do. The reason they choose you is because of something that is appealing to them. And again, maybe your marketing message speaks to them in a way that others don't. Maybe you're embedded in the community in a different way. Maybe you're embedded in one of these affinity audiences. But that's how people make these hiring decisions. And by the way, the bad news is like all the mega spenders, they know this too. That's why you see them out in the community doing backpack giveaways, work, blah, blah, blah. They know that they've got to do that too because they know they're losing market share to the firms that are competing on this. Now, the good news is that in most, even competitive markets, it's still extremely fractured. People still, when asked, a lot of people will not be able to name a personal injury law firm. And certainly in the other practice areas, family firm, immigration law firms, most consumers, Morgan's the closest one to a national brand that everybody recognizes. Top Dog's working on it. But if you go and ask people, like, do you know, give me the name of two plaintiffs' lawyers in your area, there's going to be some that aren't going to be able to name any. There's going to be many that name somebody that they know. And there's going to be some that, of course, that are going to name the major players. But there's a lot of fragmentation. And so that's a huge opportunity. And the other thing, too, is that we talk about this a lot, too. Lawyers are always like, when I say you got to build brand, they're like, gee, I don't have enough money to be on TV and radio and billboards and all this stuff. And I'm like, you can build brand in much more efficient ways. Local community events with digital support, do giveaways, get people on email lists, get them on first party audiences on social media, retarget them. You can do brand building without spending hundreds of millions of dollars. And if you couple that concept of brand building with affinity, so it's co-marketing, make something up here. You got pizza shop. Everybody loves the pizza in this place. You do a co-marketing thing with the pizza shop. You're going to buy, come to the pizza shop on this night. You're going to do an event at the pizza shop. You're going to buy everybody pizza, sign up here, QR code, whatever. You do the event. People are now subscribed. You want to enter other giveaways, subscribe to get additional giveaways, tag your friends on social media. That's a reason. And you think about that. Lawyers will be like, there's no way that someone's going to choose their lawyer based on me buying them pizza. And you're totally wrong. They will. That's how people make these decisions. I met you at the pizza thing and I thought of you and I referred my friend to you because you were very approachable and really awesome at the pizza event.
Yeah, that's such an important point too, because it's like it's thinking outside of just a very direct, they're hiring me because they need it right now and they went and did the search and they made the call. It is absolutely coming from the fact that they feel like they know you, they feel like some affinity towards you, and then go through from there. But absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about niche and positioning. I talked to a firm that had a genuine niche that had very few competitors that were doing what they're doing. How differently should they market that practice area versus one that's got a ton of competition and really crowded?
The whole question is like, can they hit their growth goals in that niche? This is the right. So you can be like, I'm the law firm that only focuses on child burn injuries. And again, we're talking about personal injury here, so it tends to be morbid when we talk about it in business terms. But are there enough child burn injury survivors that can, or victims, I guess is another way of saying it, that can support your growth objectives? And if there are, I would double down on that, right? I would totally double down on the very specific niche. Of course, the problem is that, one, building a niche brand takes a lot of time. And is it actually a defensible niche? People make up these arbitrary niches and they don't really distinguish themselves from other people. We see this a lot with the trucking accident lawyers. And lawyers are like, oh yeah, we specialize in truck cases. And to their credit, many of them will try to distinguish like why truck expertise matters, right? Why it matters that we've actually worked these truck cases. And there are legitimate reasons. But if you're not able to break through on that, someone that's thinking, oh, does car accidents, they're not thinking that truck is a separate thing. They're not thinking like you have to educate them of why a truck accident lawyer is a different thing than just like a general car accident lawyer. And that's an uphill battle. And so if you're picking a niche, it's got to be something that's intuitively, oh yeah, I understand why you're the only person who does this one thing. Because guess what? Every single motor vehicle accident lawyer says that they handle truck accident cases too.
Exactly.
What's a niche that you truly do that nobody else is doing? Why is your knowledge specialized? Why are these types of cases unique? Why are these types of clients unique? And that requires your kind of specialization. And then is there enough of that type of case out there to support your practice? Those are the questions I'd be asking. But if you have that, if you hit those, if you have a critical mass of potential of addressable market, you have a genuinely unique niche where you've genuinely unique expertise on a particular practice area, I would double down on that. Forget everything else. Lead with that. Update all your marketing collateral to support that. Because again, just positioning 101, that's what's going to stand out. You're the only game in town. Nobody else does what you do, where most firms are trying to stretch. We're the only ones who really do car accidents the way that we do them. That's not as well positioned as someone who can actually say that, and it's actually true.
Yeah. All right, I got another one here. This one was a nursing home case, a nursing home abuse firm. And they said that oftentimes their audience is actually the adult children, not the residents themselves. So how does the marketing change when the decision maker isn't the client directly?
Yeah, I think this is true a lot of times, and I think kudos to that firm for thinking like this. But at the risk of stating the obvious, it's a totally different audience. So how they consume media, where they go, how they're making decisions is totally different, right? If you're 90 and you're in a nursing home, no offense to 90-year-olds in nursing homes, probably not spending a lot of time on TikTok. So if you're out there trying to appeal to 90-year-olds in a nursing home on TikTok, it's not matching up. Now, on the other hand, adult children, yeah, they're going to consume media. They're going to look for referrals in a totally different way. Maybe they've got kids, maybe they're more active in their local communities. And so when you change your audience targeting, your strategy has to completely change as well.
Yeah. We talk a lot about seen, but not necessarily chosen. So this came up a couple of times. I wanted you to give an open-ended question here, but you've watched people choose law firms in behavioral studies. Walk through what actually happens when you see them between I saw them on Google and I actually called them in terms of that experience watching the behavior of that.
They're only picking between the lawyers that they already know. So this is what they say. Firm A, I know them. Firm B, I know them. Firm C, I know them. I'm going with firm B because of XYZ. That's it. You're not always, it doesn't matter what your position is. You can be the first one in the local pack. You can be the first one in the LSA pack. You can be the first one in the traditional organic result. If they don't recognize you, there's already recognizability baked in. And in most communities, there's some any competitive place, there's some kind of advertiser that's doing billboards, that's doing TV, that's doing offline media, or that's really invested in the local community that people recognize them because they're doing backpack giveaway, or they're doing scholarship, or they're advertising, they're active in, I don't know, just making things up, some kind of local community thing. They're the ones that are getting chosen. Everybody else is outside looking in. And so you're not even in the consideration set unless they recognize you. Now, look, are there exceptions to this? Yes. Do segments of the market also just do the straight linear non-brand search, click, call, hire journey? They do. But you have a huge competitive advantage if you have recognizability in a direct response context. We just see it over and over again. And I can't remember what the specific number is, but we'll say it's over half. Over half of consumers are impacted. Their choosing decision, the firm that they choose with, is impacted by some form of recognizability. And so that means that a lot of the market is going, even in a non-brand context, is going to firms that have recognizability, which goes back to the same thing, which is why if you completely divest in brand and all you do is try to capture direct response, you're already out of the conversation with a large segment of the market.
That's fascinating. That big consideration set.
It's big.
Let me see what else I got here. There was a firm, they've done their own independent study. They had a 70% recognized rate in their particular areas.
Great job, firm.
Yeah, amazing.
Love it.
They had some issues with SEO, and the recommendation was to update their name to include accident and injury. What's your take? Is that a little bit more of a sticky thing to do? Is it the kind of thing that actually you'd back up? And I'm asking this within the context of a firm that has a very recognizable brand in the area already.
So yeah, this is a very hard question, and I'm gonna try to give you the have your cake and eat it too answer. But let's just face it, like everything else, anytime you make some kind of change to your brand, anytime you make some kind of change to your Google business profile, there are going to be some trade-offs. And to me, the equity is in the brand, and anything that you do to diminish that or to dilute the brand, it's probably not worth it. Now, that being said, here are some cake and eat it too answers. Look, let's just say it's my Gies Law Firm. So everybody knows Gies Law Firm, Gies Law, whatever it is. If my Google business profile is Gies Law Accident and Injury Attorneys, it's not going to make a difference to the brand. The brand's built into the name. You're adding the keywords to the business name, so it's going to probably improve your visibility in local pack. But the trick is that you're not doing, if it impacts the brand. So if you change the name in a way where people don't associate the brand, it's probably not worth it. Now, another workaround might be that you got your brand out there. Maybe your main Google business profile location page is the trade name or the branded name, and then you do practitioner names. Of course, you got to build up reviews to be competitive. It would be like just keep the analogy going. It's like everybody knows Gies Law Firm, and our main Google business profile is Gies Law Firm, and then I've got individual practitioner page for Gies where it's like Gies Detroit car accident lawyer or something like that for my practitioner page. So there are some things to do around that, but the most have your cake and eat it too is to incorporate the keywords into your Google business profile name in a way that doesn't take away from the brand name. And I'll tell you this, my hunch is, even though if you go look today in most competitive markets, you probably see Google business profiles with keyword rich names. We know it's a very powerful impact. My hunch is that as we move forward the next couple of years, 5 years, whatever, that it's going to be less of a signal, because the
I think you're
brand
right.
is what's actually making the difference. And my hunch on that is also based on, we know these firms that have generated brand interest offline. So people are searching on the firm name because they know the brand, or because they saw them offline media, or because of whatever reason they know them. They're starting to show up. Keep in mind, let's just do a little test while we're live here. Let's do car accident lawyers. We'll do West Palm Beach, just a cherry pick here. And we look on here. Look, so the number one business in Google Local Pack is Gold Law. So no keywords in law, I guess you could say, but no, that's their brand. Gold Law is the brand.
That's the name.
The next one, Lytle, Ryder, Smith, Ivy, and Fronrath. No keywords in the name. Steiner, Green, and Feiner. No keywords in the name. Apparently, I got lucky and picked this, and it was none of them had keywords in the name. But who I thought was going to come up was going to be Morgan & Morgan, but for whatever reason, they don't. Now, here we go. Palm Beach Accident Law. Farah and Farah has West Palm Beach. CarAccidentAttorney.com. So anyway, it's a mix. I think you can win if you've got significant brand. And frankly, let's just face it, this is going to come a lot down to, over the course of time, it's going to come down a lot more down to reviews and stuff. And
Yeah.
the less ranty version is, if you can maintain your brand and add keywords, go for it. But don't do it at the diminishment of the brand. The brand is more valuable than your Google Local Pack rankings.
Totally. And in this particular case, that's especially true considering a study saying 70% recognition. You don't want to do anything to hamper that. That's years. I think they've been around for 27 years. That's a ton of work to get to that point. Don't throw that baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, and again, I would. The other thing that I would test into is look at the data. Have they been running like non-brand direct response ads? Like, what percentage of their total case volume comes from non-brand direct response? Because again, if you improve your visibility in Local Pack, it's going to grow that, which is great. But is it making up 20%? Are you going to trade 80% for 20%? And especially that we already know, like, you're still, if you show up, you still need that brand equity. And so think about this worst case scenario. You make a change to your Google business profile. You're ranking there, but people don't recognize you anymore. And so now you've done something. That's somebody that might have otherwise become a client because they have recognizability, that won't, because they're not choosing you because they don't see you there, because they didn't recognize you from your Google business profile.
Flies in the face of everything you're just talking about, which is they're choosing. Right. We've watched them. They're choosing based on familiarity. Don't do anything that would step all over that.
Yeah. And look, it's funny. People have been like, oh, Guy's out there telling everybody to not focus on local SEO and don't do Google ads and local services ads and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's not my message at all. I think, right, if anything, my message right now is that if you go and look at your full marketing mix, you're probably over-indexed on non-brand direct response activities and under-indexed, under-invested, under-capitalized on brand activity. And when you lay a firm's marketing budget against the consumer research, it's like everybody's spending 80% of their budget to appeal to 20% of the local services consumer market, and they should flip that. Go build brand, because that's where the majority of people are making their choices anyway.
And one begets the other. One helps the other one. And you are right, just on the ground. It's exactly what I see. It's almost entirety of digital marketing budgets are in the direct response bottom of the funnel. And everybody's fighting over that super expensive segment with a lot of frustration. And a lot of times, it's not just a little bit of budgets upstream or towards brand or affinity. It's oftentimes there's nothing there. There's nothing there at all. It's all in on these direct response and a lot of jumping around to different agencies to try to make it keep working. And they're missing a big piece of it, to the point that you're making.
Yep.
Good stuff, Guy. Those are the questions that I have for today.
Great questions, Jeff. Always a pleasure to talk to you. If you're listening to this, please do subscribe to Clienting on your favorite podcast, Widgemabob. And if you're interested in contributing, we will get you a scheduling link so that you can share your clienting story. Until next time, Jeff and Guy for Clienting by AttorneySync.